My name is Brittney Paul. I'm a volunteer counsellor at Baragwanath Hospital, and my work involves providing basic counselling services to both the paediatric patients in the colorectal unit and to their parents. That awareness has grown in recent years, especially post-pandemic. I think that during the pandemic, we couldn't engage in the really basic activities that normally support our mental health, seeing friends and family members and loved ones, or exercising, or engaging in our hobbies in a more social setting. All of those were kind of taken away from us during COVID, and I think people really realized how important their mental health is because of that. And since then, I think there have been a lot more mental health awareness campaigns and initiatives, especially by the youth. I think also social media has played a big role. I think we're seeing a lot more campaigns over social media. Access, I think, is a bit of a different story. Access to care remains very uneven, especially, for youth and students in under-resourced areas. They don't have a lot of access to mental health care. They face a lot of challenges when accessing mental health care. There's a limited availability of trained professionals, there's stigma, there are long wait times to even get a session. I don't work too much with students, so I can't answer this question fully. I can only really speak from my own experience of being a student. Also, I don't really know about past generations, but I think when I was a student, there were a lot of people with anxiety, depression, burnout. There's a lot of academic pressure, a lot of social comparison, also because of social media, uncertainty about the future, especially for students in medical fields or related fields. But yeah, that's just me speaking from my experience. I think it plays a huge role. I think it can be both positive and negative. Positives that there's a lot more awareness around mental health. A lot more people are speaking about their experiences. A lot of initiatives are being run via social media, and we are seeing a lot more of that and a lot more awareness of people struggling with their mental health. But I think it's also a place where it's very easy for us to ourselves and compare ourselves to others. We see our peers or people we know excelling and doing amazingly in life, and they've got all these achievements, and then we sit there and we're like, okay, well, why am I not on the same page? Why am I not there yet? So I think it is a place for a lot of comparison. I think it's a very well-known fact that medical health training is very intense, and it demands a lot of you. I do think that it can lead to a lot of stress, a lot of burnout, sleep deprivation, all of those kinds of things. Even emotional fatigue, because you're dealing with such hectic cases that it's difficult to not be emotionally fatigued all the time. I can't speak from a medical perspective. I'm not a medical student. I don't know what supports are in place. From a psychology perspective and studying as a psychology student, I don't think that there were any supports that were really embedded into our training. But there were supports that were available if you went out and found them for yourself. So, if you wanted to go for regular psychological debriefing or somewhere where you can talk in a group about your experiences, you can find those. Or even mentorship opportunities. There are a lot of opportunities for mentorship, especially through networks like Cognition & Co., which is the psychology student network, or even your own personal networks where you can find a lot of mentorship opportunities. Even counselling services through universities or online counselling services. So I think that these supports are available, but they're just not a foundation of our training, which they probably should be. It's acknowledged quite informally, more through conversations than actually action, and more conversations between workers or amongst staff. But there are a lot of barriers to access to mental health care, especially in the healthcare setting. I think especially with the time constraints and the crazy hours that doctors and staff work, it's difficult to find time outside of that to prioritize your mental health and go seek support. Also, things like costs, things like even feeling like you need to be resilient. I think there is that kind of belief in healthcare settings that you need to be resilient and you need to be strong, and saying that you might need some help or might need some mental health care is seen as a weakness in some cases. There's a huge stigma. I think it's maybe the biggest barrier to mental health care. There are those kind of traditional beliefs in a lot of the communities that we serve where mental health is seen as either like a personal weakness or a spiritual failing or other traditional beliefs. And there's a lot of misunderstanding around mental health and even just a general lack of understanding. People don't know what mental health is, why it's important, where they can access services, how they can access services, what a session looks like, etc. Can go on for hours. But yeah, I think there is just like a general misunderstanding, and that makes it really scary to go seek help. When you don't know what you're expecting, it's difficult to go out and try find it. Among healthcare professionals, I think it's probably the same, but also the professional, having to be seen as a professional and having to be seen as strong also plays a role. And I think it's that fear that leads a lot of people to just suffer in silence and not actually seek out the help that they need. It's crucial. I think, being at Barra, and also I volunteered at an organization called Rare Diseases South Africa, where we counsel people who have extremely rare diseases. I think seeing the kind of emotional burdens that they're faced with, they experience a lot of fear, grief, frustration, shame, they're afraid of being bullied, they're afraid of being stigmatized. All of those play a massive role in their mental health. Even if we speak about Barra specifically, a lot of kids have stoma bags, either permanent or temporary. But that makes it difficult for them to want to go to school and to want to make friends or play with their friends. Because they're scared. They're scared of being bullied, they're scared of being shamed, they're scared of being seen as different. And I think that having those kinds of things going on in your mind and having a difficult time with your mental health also makes it difficult to focus on your physical health and stick to a medical program. If you're struggling to get out of bed in the morning or take a shower or talk to your family, you're not going to be prioritizing going to your doctor's appointments. It has a massive impact. I think seeing that, firstly, it's a misunderstanding. A lot of these kids have an ARM, and those moms have never heard of anything like that or seen anything like that, and they're maybe the only person in their community that's experiencing that. So even just feeling isolated and feeling like you're alone and like you're different, that plays a massive role on your mental health. Also, having to go to Barra all the time, having to see other moms that or maybe their kids are worse than yours, having to stay at the hospital away from your support systems, that's really difficult, and that can take a massive toll on your mental health. I think interdisciplinary teams are essential. I think that, each professional brings their own perspective, their own opinion, their own unique lens to each patient that can really make a bit more of a well-rounded view of what's really going on with the patient. I think it also helps build trust in the healthcare system in some way. If let's say I'm a patient, I feel like I have a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a social worker, a doctor, a surgeon, whatever, all on my team, and they're all looking out for what's best for me, I'm more likely to kind of trust what they're saying and more likely to trust the healthcare system as a whole. I think it's also important to know or to note that each of those professions has an area where they can and they can't work. So if I as a counsellor have a patient who is maybe going into an area where I'm not qualified to work in that area, having those interdisciplinary teams makes it really easy for me to kind of hand the patient over and make sure that they get the care and the treatment that they really need. So it also helps with access to care and not making patients wait months to get an appointment because we have those professionals available right away. I'd say there's a lot of innovation in community-based mental health care, a lot of peer support networks or even like mobile counseling units, mental health advocacy. I think those have all grown recently. I think that digital tools have also been really helpful. I mean, a lot of my sessions I have over WhatsApp video call, and that makes accessibility a lot easier. Even like online therapy, there are a lot of free online counseling services that people can use that make care a little bit easier to access.
Okay.
Probably everyone that you ask this question to will say the same thing, but I think self-care. Self-care is not negotiable, making sure that you're sleeping, that you're eating right, spending time with your family, that you're moving your body in a way that feels good for you. All of those things are really essential. I'd also say don't make your degree your world. I know it's easier to say than it is to do, but don't get stuck in your degree and make that your entire world. Have other things going on. Have hobbies, have boundaries when it comes to your degree. Have self-compassion as well. I think that's a big one. Treating yourself like you would a friend or a patient in that situation. And just speaking kindly to yourself.
Okay.
I think I'd have to say stigma. I think that's something that we've spoken about a lot today. And yeah, I think just destigmatizing how people view mental health. I think it plays a role in almost every aspect that we've spoken about. Students, they may be scared to get help because they're afraid of being seen as weak, or may feel like they don't have enough time to prioritize their mental health. Healthcare professionals, they feel like they don't want to be seen as incompetent or not resilient. People in underprivileged communities, they may be living in communities where those traditional beliefs are still held and don't want to be ostracized by their community for seeking mental health support and admitting that they do maybe need some professional help. And I think with that comes awareness. I think what you're doing is great, and I think that a lot of social media initiatives are really just helping to improve awareness and open those conversations. So a lot of those conversations just start, in like the inner circle, and even having those conversations just with your family, with your friends, that can help.